the former presidential envoy to Iraq, and so much more. The chairman of the Committee of Terrorism and presidential envoy to Iraq, as I said, Ambassador Paul Bremer. Ambassador, what do you make of that distinction he's making here? Fix it, don't nix it. The president essentially wants to nix it.
Well, I think it is reasonable to say that we should try to fix the two greatest weaknesses in the Iran agreement. First, its unconstrained ballistic missile program, which for now is under the constraint of a Security Council resolution that said, pretty please, don't do that anymore. And the more important problem is the waxing of Iranian authority in the region. Those are the two things that I think are among the things that could conceivably be put in a new agreement.
You know, the president has always hated this agreement. He said at campaigning that he would nix it, tear it up. He said that about a lot of agreements here. But he's been very pragmatic when it comes to, like, trade accords. For example, being against the Trans-Pacific Partnership, but then open to revisiting it. I'm wondering if the same applies to the Iran Accord. What is your sense?
Well, it's possible, but I think one should be realistic. I don't think the Iranians have very much interest in amending this agreement because they will know that the Russians and the Chinese, who are both parties to the agreement, are not likely to support it. And then there's the question of Germany. Angela Merkel, the chancellor, will be here at the end of the week, and she's in a much weaker political position, and Germany is much more distracted than was the case a year ago. So I think the prospects for getting a broad European agreement are not terrific, and it's worth trying just to keep the Europeans engaged. But I don't think it's likely to result in much.
Ambassador, what's to make the Iranians renegotiate? If they've got a lot of the money, most of the money already, what's the incentive?
Well, I don't think they will. That's what I just said. Right. I think the Iranians have very little incentive, and therefore...
So I guess what I'm saying is if we are the only ones open to nixing this thing and Europe either won't or can't, then what?
Well, I think we need to step back here, Neil. We have interests in the region, as the president recognized yesterday when he said that while we're leaving, he wants to leave behind strong and lasting footprints. Now, I guess I would say, first of all, you don't get footprints without boots on the ground. And secondly, you don't get a lasting effect untethered to a regional strategy. So we need a regional strategy directed particularly at the problem of the waxing Iranian authority. That means figuring out a way to change the balance of forces on the ground. And we do have some people who are willing to help us with that, possibly even the French. That's the thing that will eventually, if anything, get the Iranians' attention.
Ambassador, what did you make of the president? I'm paraphrasing here. He said we spent $7 trillion in this region, in the Middle East, and gotten nothing for it. We're worse off for it. What did you think of that?
Well, I don't know where the number comes from. I don't agree that we've got nothing for it. We certainly have a problem in the region that we didn't have before, which is Iran's move. Basically, it's an ancient Persian dream to dominate the area from the Zagros Mountains in the east to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. Cyrus the Great started that particular Persian idea more than 2,000 years ago. And we have to find a way to counter that using what forces we can.
And this is an economic matter on the trade matter with us and the Chinese. The president says it's time to extract some concessions from them. The Apple CEO meeting with him as we speak, Ambassador. I'm sure, just to say, be careful on this. Obviously, Apple has a lot of business over there, makes a lot of phones over there, sells a lot of phones over there. How far can the president go on this without igniting problems in other areas? He says the Chinese cheat. They need us more than we need them, and I'm expecting them to make some concessions. Are you?
Well, I think it's clear that the president does a lot of his negotiating in public. And it's hard to know how much of the things that are said are the actual bottom line. I don't know. Certainly we need to try to work with the Chinese on trade. More importantly right now, I think he's going to need China's help if we're going to get some kind of an arrangement in North Korea whenever he meets Kim Jong-un in the next month or so. So there are a lot of balls in the air in the relations with China, among which is trade, certainly.
So when he is doing these novel things to get the Chinese to concede when his course with the North Korean leader is a totally different example, but the same effect, shock to get them to the table. And it works, or if it works. What are your thoughts about diplomacy going forward?
Well, since I was a diplomat for most of my life, I think summit agreements ought to be carefully prepared. And I think it's a good idea that Pompeo went there to have a preliminary meeting in secret with Kim Jong-un. But whatever we do in Korea immediately engages the interests of our allies in the region, South Korea, Japan, and of course, China. So it's a multifaceted thing which doesn't lend itself to winging it. It has to be carefully prepared, this summit.
Now, a lot has been said of the president saying that if I feel the talks are going nowhere, they're being unproductive, I'll just up and leave the table. What did you think of that?
Well, again, this is his style, and
right.
I think part of the problem for other countries is not knowing where the line stops. What is it that is said publicly that is real in face-to-face? A summit meeting that fails with a potential adversary is a very serious problem because there's no access, no other thing you can do. Once you've met at the summit level, you can't go higher than that. So it has to be carefully prepared. I think that's really the bottom line.
Ambassador Paul Bremer, very good seeing you again. Thanks for taking the time.
Nice to be with you again, Neil.